Good day and welcome to the SNN Network Summer Virtual Event. Our next presenting company is PyroGenesis Canada Inc. It is now my pleasure to turn the floor over to Peter Pascali, CEO and Chairman of the Board at PyroGenesis Canada Inc. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dagmar, for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me this morning and allowing me to share with you PyroGenesis Canada Inc. I am the CEO and Chairman of the company and a majority shareholder. PyroGenesis Canada Inc. is listed on the NASDAQ, TSX, and also on the Frankfurt exchanges. And what we like to say is that we make sustainability sustainable. And what we mean by this is simply that when you look at our offerings, for the most part, they're economical on their own, and they don't need any of the environmental incentives to make them profitable. We find it unreasonable to ask clients or companies to do something more expensive to meet their environmental goals. We believe that we have the intelligence to offer them something cheaper and sustainable, and that's how we get over the hurdle and the difficulties of addressing environmental concerns. Forward-looking statement here to look at your leisure. At the bottom of the page, you see a cutaway of our facilities. We currently operate out of 2 locations, roughly one's about 35,000 square feet, the other 40,000 square feet, and it gives you a sense of what we're doing. PyroGenesis Canada Inc. uses plasma, which is considered to be the 4th state of matter. And I don't want to sound too technological, but it is the 4th state of matter. Your science school teacher may have described to you the 3 states of matter being solids, liquids, and gases. If you heat one up, it becomes the next. The example of a solid was oftentimes an ice cube. You heat it up, it becomes water, a liquid. You heat that up, it becomes steam or a gas. Well, you take that gas and you heat up even further, and it becomes plasma. The sun is a plasma ball, lightning is a plasma, so we didn't invent plasma, but we did manage to harness many of its interesting capabilities. On the far right side of that slide, you'll see a plasma torch. It's effectively a high-tech hair dryer, for lack of a better description. A hair dryer, you take cold air, you heat it up, it becomes hot air. Well, if you take a gas and you heat it up quite a bit, it becomes plasma. So we have plasma torches, and what we do is we take these plasma torches and we put them into various processes, and we tap into their many advantages, and you'll see quite a few of them in the coming slides. We like the fact that using plasma torches, we can transform things. We've been around for over 25 years, so we're not new players on the block. We have over 110 patents. I think employees are around 7. I think we may be hitting about 85 employees these days. As I mentioned to you, we have 2 facilities in Montreal, Canada. We have one of the highest concentrations of plasma expertise under one roof, which has enabled us to become a leader in commercializing advanced plasma technologies. And as you will see, particularly as of late, we have focused many of our offerings on their natural greenhouse gas emission reduction benefits. We started off many, many years ago addressing some of the concerns in the U.S. military, Navy particularly, which was throwing their waste overboard. Congress had mandated that the U.S. Navy could not throw their waste overboard in theaters of peace. And particularly the U.S. aircraft carrier had a particular challenge, and along the short of it is that we refined our commercial capabilities with the U.S. military, where we are now in the design of the U.S. aircraft carrier, which arguably is one of the highest tech platforms in the world, and arguably the U.S. military is probably one of the most discerning clients in the world, with exacting requirements and specifications, particularly when it comes to quality. And we are now in the design of the U.S. aircraft carrier, where we destroy certain wastes that are on board the aircraft carrier. We've already delivered 2 systems. We already delivered 1 system, and we currently have we delivered 2 systems, in 2011 and 2016, and we have another 2 systems on order from last September. What this has done is it has validated our capabilities and of dealing with large-scale clients, multi-billion-dollar clients with very exacting requirements. And one way may argue, but you wouldn't build a business around supplying waste treatment systems every time an aircraft carrier is built, and you would be right if you said that. What it did do was it funded our research and development in making plasma-based systems easy to use and reliable. And what it also did was it ended up being a springboard into what is today 4 very significant offerings. Our iron ore pelletization offering, aluminum dross recovery offering, our waste treatment offering, which I touched upon just now, and our additive manufacturing offering. Each one of them are very independent of the others. And one may ask, well, Peter, what are you doing? Are you in iron ore pelletization? Are you in 3D printing? Are you in the environment? And I'd say we're in all of them. And what we do is we effectively have diversified the mix to de-risk the company, but not so much so that we lose concentration of what we're doing. Each one of these business segments, you will find, have been vetted and adopted by multi-billion-dollar industry leaders. So to some degree, they have vetted the technology, although anybody who's interested in the company has to do their own due diligence, of course. Let me give you a sense of what we're doing in each of these business segments and what you might be looking forward to. In iron ore pelletization, it's an industry where they essentially concentrate the iron ore at the source before transporting it. And in this industry, they use furnaces that are heated with diesel burners, which essentially are fossil fuel burners. Each one of these furnaces may have up to 50 burners heating each furnace up, and each plant may have 10 to 15 of these furnaces. So what we're talking about are thousands upon thousands of fossil fuel burners. There's been an interest in addressing this worldwide. How can we reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from these facilities? And because in the interest of time, I'll just speed along and quickly describe to you the success we had in Sweden, where they bought one of our torches to see how they could address this problem as part of their goal to go to zero carbon emissions by, I think it's 2035. The long and short of it, they found that our plasma torches, which do not burn fossil fuels, it's electricity, it's clean. Our torches do not have any greenhouse gas emissions. The question was, could you replace these fossil fuel burners with plasma torches? And the question is a resounding yes. It's easy. You can basically plug and play. You can take out the diesel burner and put in the plasma torch and make some adjustments, and you're off to the races. What's also interesting is that you don't have to shut down the furnaces, so there's no lost revenue. You can continue operating them as you make this change out. And it seems to be an economic benefit to doing so when all is considered. Because of our success in Sweden, the industry itself was galvanized and approached us because, to be truthful, we did not realize what pressures the industry is under. In fact, not only were they under pressures from environmentalists and investors and boards, their lending institutions were they're reducing their greenhouse gases to lending facilities. So all this to say is that we've been approached by 3 clients. We've publicized 3 clients. There's more, of course. Client A, B, and C, and we limit it to 3 because arguably if there's just one, they may not be, they may not be smart, and 2 may be a copycat, but 3 would tend to give you some confidence that there's something there. So anyways, these clients A, B, and C all together have a potential need for over 1,000 torches. We have press released that each torch has a net present value to us of about $3 million. And that's a very conservative number because we valued the initial torch sale at between $1 and $1.5 million. And the subsequent maintenance and service contract will only go out 5 years when these torches last over 20 years. So it's a very conservative estimate. And the update with respect to client ABC is simply that they go through computer simulation. Once that's done, they order 1 to 5 torches, it seems. One has already been ordered from client A for $1.8 million. And we anticipate another order between 1 to 5 torches from client B in short order. Client A has gone into the next step and asked for a cost estimate for 36 torches, which means they've already identified a furnace. Why all this detail? Because we're progressing naturally through several steps, and each of these steps seems to be coming up positive and moving to the next. And this is clearly a very big industry for us, potential industry for us, as we have the patent on replacing diesel burners with plasma torches in the iron ore pelletization industry. We do not have it in other industries where we're getting quite a bit of interest, such as the cement, steel, aluminum, and automotive. But we clearly have a first mover advantage there. These industries that I just mentioned to you are also under significant pressure to reduce greenhouse gases, and they operate diesel burners. The other offering that we have that reduces greenhouse gases is the technology that we have called DROSRITE, which effectively recuperates a valuable metal from a waste stream coming out of the aluminum smelter. So an aluminum smelter, when the aluminum comes out of the plant and comes in contact with oxygen, it forms something called a dross, which is like a sponge, and it soaks up valuable aluminum. It's put to the side, but there's valuable aluminum in it, so they want to get it back. And the traditional process uses salt rotary furnace. The salt in it precludes it from being on site because if salt comes in contact with aluminum, it'll contaminate the whole batch. So it goes off site, and there's costly transportation, heating, cooling, and there's a lower metal recovery. To make a long story short, we have a system that doesn't use salt. By not using salt, it enables you to be on site, you can do it cheaper, you get a higher metal recovery, and you have a clean residue because using salt, you get salt cakes, using the traditional process, and that's considered to be hazardous. I'll just quickly go through the price progression over the years. To make a long story short, our first order, very difficult to get. Nobody believed we didn't use salt. We could do it without salt. First order was for $600K. The same client ordered the second one shortly thereafter for $1 million, second order. Fast forward to 2019, 2020, our technology won a SEP system bid for roughly $20 million in the first year. This is significant because in short order we became, I believe, the technology of choice for dross, recovering metal from dross. We recently received an LOI from an existing client for an additional 10 systems. What's very interesting in this market space is two things. One is being inside the fence, what we call inside the fence. We're able to see how they were using clean residue, and simply put, they were landfilling it or selling it cheaply to the cement industry. We found a way with another company that's out there to convert this residue into a high-value chemical product. We press released in the past that we should be announcing a joint venture with them. That's going to be very significant once it happens because it'll make our already strong offering much stronger, and it'll open up an untapped opportunity because as we speak, that clean residue, although it's clean, governments around the world don't want it to be landfilled anymore, and so a lot of smelters are wondering what to do with it. Also, upstream from DROSRITE, we've identified an opportunity to, we can't speak specifically to what it is, but to do something they're currently doing using our plasma torches. It's cheaper than what they're currently using, and it reduces greenhouse gases. And we've announced that the price tag on that is about a $40 million price tag, and we seem to be front runners on both on both opportunities that we're currently in discussions on. The last of the four offerings is I'll quickly talk to Additive Manufacturing, where we can convert using plasma torches, wires into small spherical powders, ideal for 3D printing. We invented the technology called Pelletization. It's now a household name word in the industry. We signed with Auburn Duval a number of years ago to provide to them exclusively titanium powders, and they would buy exclusively from us to service Europe. To make a long story short, we understand that the multi-billion-dollar parent company of Auburn Duval, Aramet, has never sold something they don't own in their 100-year history, and this is the first time. There was a delay in moving forward with Auburn Duval because we wanted to improve our production line before we locked in long-term contracts. And I think the fact that they waited for us it speaks to our product and basically to our product. As soon as we announced on April that our production line was up and running, a Tier 1 global aerospace company signed an agreement with us where they were going to spend significant amounts of money to qualify our powders. I've just quickly described to you the four offerings: iron ore pelletization, aluminum dross recovery, waste treatment, and metal powders. For the same price, you're also getting some opportunities that we have, the future opportunities. Well, I did speak to you about the dross rate residue. There's also pot lining, waste recovery in the aluminum industry, as well as a series of products that we're developing with a client called HPQ. Just on HPQ, I could spend another half hour on, but if you have any questions, we can talk about that at another time. All being said, that in each one of our main offerings, we're at an inflection point where there's significant catalysts expected in the very short to midterm that will essentially change the nature of the company. We are growing organically based on our strong balance sheet. We have no debt, relatively no debt. We have a significant amount of cash on our balance sheet, so we do have the capabilities of growing organically, and we are. And we're also looking at synergistic mergers and acquisitions, all focusing on greenhouse gas emissions. We recently bought Air Science. On the right-hand side, it basically is an overview of the acquisition. $4.4 million. It's paid on milestones, so nothing up front. We bought with that a backlog of $10 million approximately $10 million of contracts, $15 million in pipeline, receivables of $5 million, and debt of $2 million. Debt of $2 million expected to be paid out of cash flow. What's interesting about Air Science is what they do is they repurpose landfill gas, which is damaging to the environment, to pipeline-ready gas. And right now, there's a huge wave of regulations being put in place, where governments are regulating that gas pipelines must have a minimum amount of renewable natural gas. And it's in our opinion, there's not enough of these renewable natural gas suppliers to meet the future demand. Also, what Air Science does is they purify coke oven gas, which is very similar to a syngas that comes off our land-based systems. And what they repurpose that coke oven gas into is a high-value product, hydrogen specifically. Now, if we can take their process of purifying coke oven gas and do the same thing to our syngas that comes off of land-based systems, which is currently being used to produce electricity, which is very cheap, and we can convert into high-value products like hydrogen, it immediately increases the value of our land-based offerings, and it will be quite a significant step in that direction. Anticipated catalysts over the near term with respect to plasma torch iron ore pelletization. Any torch order from an additional iron ore pelletizer is extremely significant because it confirms what we've been saying all along, that there's a huge interest and people are putting their money behind it. And if there's a commitment for a long-term purchases, that's even better, obviously. But any order of any size from an additional iron ore pelletizer would be extremely significant. With respect to dross right, closing the dross residue joint venture would be very significant for the reasons I mentioned earlier, as well as doing anything upstream. Because as you see now, we're starting to have a critical mass of offerings specifically centering on the aluminum industry, a very conservative industry. And there's another one with, as I said, pot liners that I didn't mention, but essentially what we're doing is, again, repurposing the residues that come off of spent pot liners that typically go to landfill into something valuable. And we're doing that with Alouette, a major aluminum smelter here in North America, and I'm in Quebec, and with government funding, some government support. And any non-military land-based waste destruction contract, which we have mentioned in our press releases, I think is something that we're doing. Any contract would be extremely significant. So these are several catalysts that are expected to drive significant shareholder value that you may want to keep an eye open for in the near future. What I've done over the past 20 minutes or so is, financial statements. I was on the wrong slide. So, anyway, if you look at our financial statements, you'll see revenue, gross margin, modified EBITDA, improvements across the board, yearly, quarterly, 6 months. We are profitable from operations. In the second quarter of this year, our revenues are almost as high as they were in 2020, and we're operationally profitable when you take away share-based compensation. When you're just looking at operations, almost enough to wipe out the loss in Q1. And we expect that trade not only to continue but to improve. As I said, our balance sheet very strong, no debt, a backlog of $33 million, cash on hand $18 million. Very strong balance sheet. Very strong balance sheet. So what I've described to you today in the past 20-25 minutes is a company that has proprietary patented technologies that essentially has been vetted and adopted by multi-billion-dollar companies. We have fully commercialized systems plus a long tail of potential applications for the future. Again, strong balance sheet. Our focus on greenhouse gas emissions is timely as governments around the world seem to want to stimulate their economies through infrastructure and environment. And I mentioned to you a series of near-term catalysts, which once you look at them in a little bit more detail, you'll see that they're extremely important and would move the company, would underscore and confirm that the strategy we're on is the correct one. I believe we still have a few minutes, maybe not too many. Let me see if I'll go to the questions and answers. What is the possible market of medical waste destruction? Somebody asked, I don't have that number off the top of my head. And we haven't publicized any. It's huge. I mean, something that I don't think we have to worry about if the press release we announced recently leads into something. I think we can all agree that it's going to be quite significant. Where do you see the company's greatest growth coming from? Good question. Iron ore pelletization, I think, is going to, if that takes off, it's just going to be, it's easy because we could just cookie cutter it, and the growth is significant. The time to market is very short from order to completing the torch. The supply line is available. We don't need to expand our plants to address any reasonable contract. So I think short term, very, very short term is iron ore pelletization. The other is obviously DROSRITE as we're expanding into that. I believe our land-based environmental offering over the past 6 months has really shown quite a bit of let's say, interest. And not to forget 3D printing. 3D printing, we're taking steps, and they're very great steps, but we probably won't be seeing anything of significant value there before 6 months. I don't see the slides. Oh my goodness. Have I been talking all this time and nobody's seen the slides? I hope not. That would be funny. Looking at the competitive landscape, who is a larger player than you aspire to be? Who is a larger player that you aspire to be? I don't want to sound too arrogant, but I think people, to some degree, in our marketplace aspire to be us. and I don't mean to be arrogant but we are unique. We're extremely unique. We have an interesting strategy. We do what we think is the right thing to do, and notwithstanding all the people that criticize us, we stay on the path, and it seems like most of the things that we do, we're successful at to some degree. I do admit that at times I get the timing off, but when you look historically, we're pretty good at nailing what we're going to do in the future. Maybe we're off a bit in timing, but I think we've got a pretty good track record. And the things we're talking about are so huge that if you're off by 6 months, it really doesn't much matter when it comes to wondering whether a company is an interesting one to follow or not. As a president, I'm very grateful. Thank you very much, Vander. Somebody just posted not a question but a compliment. And that brings us to the end not only of our questions, but also, I believe, of the time we have. If there are no other questions, I guess we're at the end of the presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the PyroGenesis Canada Inc. presentation. Thank you for joining us. You may now disconnect.